Off the coast of a forgotten island, a lighthouse once stood as a beacon of hope, but in 1900 something unimaginable happened. 3 keepers vanished without a trace. No storm, no warning, just silence. For over a century, the mystery of the lighthouse and its missing keepers has baffled everyone who dared to uncover the truth. But what if the secrets of that lighthouse could change everything you thought you knew about the sea? Let's journey back to 1900 to reveal the untold story of the lighthouse that swallowed its keepers. Tucked away in the far reaches of the North Atlantic, the Flannan Isles were barely more than jagged cliffs and seabird nests. Most maps barely marked them. Only one thing stood tall on those rocks. A lighthouse. Painted white, it pierced the grey skies like a ghost, standing 75 feet above the crashing waves. Built to guard the dangerous waters near the Outer Hebrides, the Flannan Isles lighthouse had one mission: to keep ships alive, but the men who kept its light burning had no one guarding them. Isolation wasn't just part of the job, it was the job itself. 3 men at a time, trapped together for weeks, sometimes months. No villages, no trees, no shelter from the wind. Just stone, sea and silence. The lighthouse keepers were chosen carefully, strong-willed, disciplined. James Ducat, stern and methodical. Thomas Marshall, quiet, observant, with a strict sense of duty. And Donald MacArthur, a replacement keeper known for his temper. They followed a strict routine. Woke at dawn, maintained the lens, logged the weather, kept the oil burning. Every action was noted, every shift precisely recorded, and above all, the light could never go out. The only contact with the mainland was a supply boat, scheduled to arrive every few weeks, weather permitting. If something went wrong, the only way to signal for help was a small flagpole facing the sea. Most men cracked under the pressure, the cold, the storms, the isolation. But these 3, they were professionals, until one day they weren't. The storm that night was unlike any other. The wind howled through the cracks in the lighthouse, bending the steel structure as if it were made of paper. The waves crashed like fists against the rocky shore. Inside, the 3 men went about their duties. James Ducat paced the tower, ensuring the lamp was bright. Thomas Marshall checked the logbook, noting the time, weather, and a strange, unnerving silence. Donald MacArthur, however, was restless. His mood had darkened in the past few days, and his temper had flared more than once. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, but no one knew what. The sea had always been a capricious mistress, but tonight it felt different. The lighthouse had been out of contact for several days, and the supply boat hadn't arrived as scheduled. No one thought much of it though. The weather had been brutal. It was only after 2 days that a decision was made. Someone had to go check. But by then, something had changed. Ducat was found in the tower, staring blankly at the sea. His hand trembled as he gripped the logbook. Marshall was missing from his post, nowhere to be found, and Donald MacArthur had vanished without a trace. The door to the lighthouse was left wide open, the wind howling through the gap, but no one was there. What happened that night? What drove the men to vanish? And what was the sea hiding? The search began almost immediately. A rescue team was sent out, braving the storm that had raged for days. They reached the island, but there was no sense of life. The lighthouse stood still and abandoned, its light now dark and lifeless. The men searched the premises, scoring every inch of the structure. Inside, the fire had long since died out. The kitchen was untouched. The table still sat as if the men had just stepped away. Yet there was something strange. The lighthouse was eerily clean, too clean for a place so remote and battered by the elements. It was almost as though the place had been reset. No sign of struggle, no sign of panic, only the faint smell of oil, salt water, and something darker that seemed to hang in the air. But the real mystery was what they found in the logbook. The final entry was written in frantic, barely legible handwriting. It spoke of an approaching storm, of waves larger than any before. But there was something else, a strange phrase that seemed out of place. The light will be our end. The team didn't know what to make of it. It was clear the men had known something that drove them to write those words. But what had happened? Where had they gone? And why had they left the lighthouse so eerily perfect? There was no answer, only the cold sea and the desolate wind. The investigation deepened. Inside the lighthouse, the clues only grew more unsettling. The dining table was set for a meal that had never been touched. Plates laid out, knives and forks positioned neatly, but the food left rot. One chair was knocked over, hinting at a sudden panic. By the entrance, one set of oilskins hung untouched, meaning at least one man had ventured into the raging storm without any protection. In the sleeping quarters, the beds were made with military precision. The clocks throughout the lighthouse had stopped ticking. It felt as if the entire place had been abandoned in a single breath. No struggle, no warning, just silence. Joseph Morris' men scoured the island for signs of life. At the west landing, they found devastation. A rail torn from the concrete, strange boxes smashed, massive rocks thrown far inland by the fury of the sea, but no footprints. No bodies. The most chilling detail was the logbook. Its final entries hinted at the growing fear. Reports of fierce winds, strange behavior among the men, and an overwhelming sense of dread. The last entry, dated December 15th, was brief. It read, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." But there was no storm recorded that day, only clear skies, and still no trace of the keepers. The fog hadn't lifted. It still hung over the island, as if guarding its secrets. The story of the Flannan Isles disappearing keepers had fascinated and terrified people for over a century, leaving behind questions that have never been fully answered. Was it just a tragic accident, or was something far darker at play? One of the most widely accepted explanations is that the keepers simply made a mistake. It's believed that a violent storm swept over the island on the night of their disappearance. Perhaps they went out to check the lighthouse, which was dangerous during such a storm. Caught by the ferocity of the waves, they could have been swept away into the sea, lost in the storm's fury. But that doesn't explain the eerie calm they had before the storm, or why none of their personal items were found in disarray. Why was their food still laid out neatly? Why was the clock stopped, yet their logs perfectly written up to the point of their vanishing? Something about this doesn't add up. Some believe the Flannan Isles are cursed, an ancient evil that awakens every time a new keeper arrives. The island had long been known for its strange history. Rumors of ghostly sightings, whispers of disappearing sailors, and ancient cryptic rituals. Some locals tell tales of a ritual that was performed centuries ago, deep in the island's cave to protect it from intruders. Maybe the lighthouse keepers had unknowingly disturbed something they were never meant to find. As one old fisherman said, the island doesn't let go of its own, not without a price. It's easy to imagine that in their last moments the keepers felt something shift. A presence they couldn't explain, a force that led them to their tragic end. What if one of the keepers, perhaps driven mad by the isolation or by the whispering voices in the light, turned on the others? Was it possible that the quarrel had escalated into violence? But if this were true, why would the island be so still? Why wouldn't there be signs of struggle, of a fight to escape? The lighthouse, which should have been a place for refuge, felt more like a tomb. Could the island have turned these men against each other? Could something supernatural have driven them to madness, to an act of desperation? The final, most chilling theory is one of supernatural forces. Some believe the island itself is alive, its fog, its walls, its very atmosphere, all haunted by a dark malevolent spirit that drags those who step too close into his grasp. In the years following the disappearances, there have been reports of strange shadowy figures seen in the fog, figures who vanish just as quickly as they appear. A few survivors of shipwrecks of the coast have spoken of hearing the voices of the missing keepers in the mist, calling out to them, but no one has ever managed to get close enough to hear them again. Were the keepers victims of something beyond this world, trapped in an endless cycle of fog and darkness? As the years pass, each theory offers its own explanation, but none provide closure. No one can say for sure what happened on those fateful days when the lighthouse keepers vanished. What we do know is that the island keeps its secrets, silent, cold, and empty, and every so often, when the fog rolls in thick and the lighthouse stands alone, it feels as though the island is waiting, watching, as if it is still waiting for the next keeper to make the mistake of stepping into his grip.